All right, awesome. Welcome in, Nick. So
Yeah, thanks for having me.
today, thank you very much for coming on, everybody. Welcome back to the episode. Today's guest is Nick Tarmoson. A lot of you probably know him as Nick Tarmo. He's a McGill commerce student studying finance and statistics, a creator with over 100K followers and tens of millions of views. And he's worked in growth with Dex, Third Layer, a YC-backed AI startup, building the future of AI workspaces. But what makes Nick's story isn't just the resume. It's the fact that before the followers and startup opportunities, he was a hockey kid from Vaughan, sending hundreds of internship applications and cold emails, cleaning cars in the summer, and trying to figure out why hard work wasn't automatically turning into an opportunity. My guy, Nick, welcome in, bro.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Yeah, that was a great description.
Awesome. All right. When you, so from what I just said, when you hear all of that back, does it feel like success? Does it feel like a relief to the point where you're at right now?
I think for me, a lot of the past year has been regarding my kind of realization of potential. I feel like growing up, playing hockey, being at McGill, going through this kind of internship process where I wasn't really having my way. Deep down, I always thought that, I deserved more and I was capable of doing cool things in this world. But during my time in university and even before that, like I went into McGill University trying to get into the business program. I couldn't get into that. Went into the arts program, then just grinded my way to a 4.0, and then finally transferred in. In a way, I kind of had that sort of like underdog mentality where maybe people weren't seeing what I was seeing within myself, where I felt like I could do lots of cool things, or just wasn't realizing it in real life. And for me, when I started content a year ago, that was kind of like the final vessel where I was able to finally share my thoughts and like what I was thinking and what I knew to the world in a way where it was like sort of permissionless. I didn't need anybody to kind of tell me that I can or can't do this. It was fully on myself, and throughout that process, I realized that content creation and social media and personal branding was like the vessel that allowed me to turn my potential into reality, which is something that's in my bio, and was a big part of building something that's kind of meaningful to me and finding work that was meaningful to me. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's absolutely amazing. I mean, it's really great to see somebody who's young, ambitious, right? Going through a bunch of phases just like a normal human being would, right? It's not like you're a robot. You're just as human as everybody else. And that's the best part of other people who have done multiple things in their life where to the point where they're at right now, they would like to look back at it and they're just like, I've come a very far way, right? And I'm sure you felt that same way as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. I was actually thinking about this a couple of days ago where I was just thinking about, the past year of my life, and I'm just super proud of um, what I've done over the past year and just where I came from because um, at times it was just so hard and I was just working so much and just like trying to get this thing going, trying to get this like rocket ship going, getting it off the floor. And for me, I was someone that was a very shy, introverted kid, like couldn't speak on camera or anything. Like from the outside, there's no reason I really should have succeeded, but I just had like a belief in myself that this social media thing would work out, and it turned out that it did. So yeah, I'm super proud of where I came from and all like all the hard work that I put in over the past year. It all panned out to be worth it in the end. And now there's just a whole new journey that's starting now. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do remember saying you grew up playing hockey. So from what I saw, you've talked about being good in practice, but not performing as well in games. What does that do to a person's confidence? So you could take that into real life, right? How does that affect with a person's confidence?
Yeah. I think um, for me, it just like in practice, I was like a good hockey player. Like I whatever, I did everything good. Like I was playing good, and then when it translated to real games, I couldn't see the results of what was happening. So in my head, I'm like, dude, I have all this potential. Within whatever aspect of life it was. For let's say in this case, it was like hockey. I saw this potential, and I didn't see it kind of realize in real life. And from there, when you see like this disparity between reality and like your potential that you know you have, it creates a lot of anger and kind of frustration within you, and that was sort of the same anger and frustration that I felt within, um, sort of trying to get into this whole like trying to start a career like within school, like in internship stuff, trying to get a job, because deep down, like I was a 4.0 GPA student. Like I knew I was a smart guy. I knew how to study, and I memorized all the things. I kind of joined the extracurricular clubs that people were telling me to do, and it didn't kind of pan into real life. So from there, I had to like reevaluate like what was going on, and I realized that you could have all the skills and abilities, but to actually bring it into real life, you have to put yourself out there, or like actually like dial it. For hockey, it was like just dialing in on the confidence aspect and just like blocking out all the noise. And for interviews or jobs and social media, it was like blocking out like the nervousness and the just the judgment of other people, that you're kind of displaying yourself out to. So, in terms of confidence, it's definitely a confidence just like dagger. But I think the main thing that I got out of it was that it just creates so much anger and frustration that, ultimately was a big catalyst for why I started social media. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same for me where when I was on the basketball team, I did very well in practice, but once games actually came on, I actually felt the pressure from coaches, teammates, parents, or people on the stands, right? And that was definitely the hardest part is the confidence. How to block out that noise. How did you block out that noise when you started this content creation or whenever you started something new? How did you block out that negative thoughts or block out that outer circle noise, other people kind of like doubting you in a sort of sense?
Yeah, yeah. I actually, yeah, got asked this question in a panel that I was speaking on. Oh, you actually there?
Yeah.
There's kind of three aspects to it. So the first one is in terms of like the judgment. I realized people don't care about you as much as you think they are, as much as you think they do. They don't think about you as much as you think about yourself. So once you kind of think about that and realize that you are just a small segment of somebody else's life, whereas in your life you're like the number, like the biggest segment, right? Like you're always thinking about yourself. At least for me, like I'm always thinking about what I should do next, how I'm being perceived, how, you know if I'm realizing my potential, whatever. So once you realize that you're a small segment of somebody else's life, then it becomes very liberating, because like, okay, you say something, you post something, you do something, that's like 1% of like what that person will see that day. And once you realize that, then it's like, okay, who cares? The second thing is, it's a negativity, like humans have a negativity bias where if you post something, do something, say something, um, if you look at the support and look at the hate, um, you'll notice the hate a lot more often. It'll be a greater detriment to like your, like what you notice in your judgment. That's because humans, they were kind of evolved to survive within whatever our life, and the dangers will mean that you're dead, but the happiness and like the support doesn't really do much for survival. So in like a more tangible aspect, if you look at your comment section, 90% of it will probably be support, the 10% will be hate, but you'll only look at the hate because that feels worse to you, right?
Mm.
And then from there, it's kind of like a loss aversion thing where, um, you kind of, if you post something and you think about the negative side effects and the positive side effects, even if the negative and positive side effects are equal, you'll think that the negative side effects are two times worse than they actually are, when in reality that's not the case. And that's just like a psychological like loss aversion thing that we experience. So when you take those like cognitive biases into effect, um, you see a clearer picture than what your kind of shy introverted self didn't see at first. So that's kind of how I came overcame it over the past year. Yeah.
Holy shit, that was crazy explanation. Oh my God. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just listening to that. I was just thinking, I was just like, damn. That just gave me like a whole new perspective. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's insane. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to like really process that properly after this
Yeah,
ends. Wow.
and also like a fourth thing was whenever I did receive hate or judgment that I didn't like, and I
Hmm.
like looked at the person that was saying it and looked at their core values, like what they did within their life, who they are as a person, that hate and that judgment came from people that I didn't even want to be like in the first place. So once I realized that, I'm like, I don't want to be you. I don't want to be anything like you. We share nothing in common. Like, why do I even care about your opinion? So that was like the fourth thing that I actually like learned early on, and then those other things that I mentioned before, that was a more recent discovery.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've also learned, like even outside of content creation or even outside of literally anything, even sometimes going back to high school, like I didn't have the best grades, right? But then in grade 12, that's when I actually locked in. That's when I actually got really, really good grades. But I still looked at the negatives from time to time from grade 10, 11, and I just really thought, wow, I was very dumb, right? But I don't ever take in the positive side about the journey, about how I came to actually have better grades or how I came to become better at a certain thing, right? I feel like that's the most important part. A lot of people, they don't appreciate the journey to the point where they're at right now. Doesn't matter how big or how small the accomplishment may be. As long as you appreciate even the tiniest things, that will have a huge impact in your life. That's one thing that's really helped me. And I think has that helped you as well? Appreciating even the tiniest things.
Yeah, yeah. What I've realized over the past year is that like I've talked to lots of pretty successful people, and a common thing that I've learned is that the process is the fun part. Like
Hmm.
that's the journey. Like that's the gold mine. The results
Yeah.
is just like a very small thing of it. And once you get the results, then it becomes this thing where it's like if you get the results and then stop, like you don't see any progress, that'll like make you like depressed because you're not
Hmm.
seeing the amount of progress that you have seen in the past. So the actual dopamine like and joy in your life, at least from what I've seen and what I've talked to other people about, is just seeing like change in your life, seeing progress to a better version of yourself. If you think that you're just going to be all of a sudden just happy at a certain point once you achieve whatever, a certain amount of dollars per month or followers or whatever, like a job, and you flatline, then that becomes a very depressing part of your life because you no longer see the progression that you once had. So I think within ambitious people as well, it's very hard for us to balance kind of like that um, lack of desire to change and like just be present, and then also having that ambition to be like, yo, like this is not good enough, let me go for more. um, and that's something that I definitely still deal with and like still try to wrap my head around like how to balance it, because it's super hard to balance, like they're just super contradictory. But yeah, the process, like that's the fun part. 100%.
Well, I'm sure you always try to strive for more, but when will that more be enough? Have you ever thought about that? Because I know, like, even I'm trying to strive for more and more, but I haven't really thought about when will it ever be enough?
um, well, realistically, based off like our patterns, like as humans, there's this thing called like a hedonic treadmill or like hedonic adaptation where um, if you strive for something, you receive it, or you lose something, and like you lose something, like you just like lose whatever something in your life that you held dearly to you. Humans have this habit of just like returning to baseline level of happiness pretty quickly, and once I understood that, and once I learned that, that ties back into the whole like the process, the journey is like the gold mine. But I realized that it's if that's the case, if your baseline level of happiness returns um, back to normal so quickly, and the process is like the gold mine, it's very important to like love what you do. Um, if because what you're doing, if you're loving what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work, and that process, that journey is so much more fulfilling, so much more rewarding, so much more just easier to kind of tolerate, because like you just love what you do. And for me, that was like content creation. Um, on the weekends, on whatever, throughout the day, whenever I'm walking, I realize I'm just working 24/7 because my mind is just coming up with like content ideas, thinking about my opinions, my takes, what value I could provide to the world. And when I realized that, like, my work became just a second nature hobby, that's when I realized I was kind of in the right line of work. And that became a realization that made me think, oh my God, I'm doing the right thing, because the journey is what I like. I just love working and I love what I do. Um, and that has been a great relief. And that's kind of been a motto of my personal brand for the longest time, like finding work that's meaningful to you and like building a life that's meaningful to you. And yeah, I don't know if that answered the question entirely, but that's kind of where my head
Yeah.
is now.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. I mean, yeah, for me, it's more about enjoying that process. And I think when I come back from work and then I start doing my other side projects or even more work that I'm doing, I kind of enjoy that process and I'm also learning a lot, right? And I think that's the best part. You're constantly learning, you're constantly taking in new things, right? And that really just develops who you are and that develops your skills and that will help you a lot, right? And I remember you were talking about the result. I wanted to ask you how do you detach yourself from the result and actually enjoy that process though? Because I think it might be a difficult question, but how do you enjoy that process? For a lot of people, it's difficult for them.
Yeah, for me, like this is a huge thing, right? Within personal branding and social media and content, you're getting judged on by your results, by the output, by the views, by the followers. And whenever I have stints of time where like that's not really working out, I really reflect on like why I do this in the first place. And when I like to enjoy this process, a thing that I tell a lot of people is like focus on the inputs, focus on the inputs, detach yourself from the outputs. If you can enjoy making the inputs, that's when you know you're going to succeed. For me, my inputs are creating videos online. And whenever I'm in this phase where I don't really know what to post or my posts aren't hitting, I realize that the inputs are getting detached from who I am. So for me, like inputs is like if I'm in this creative block of my life where I can't really think of like what to post, I don't know like where the direction of my content is going into. I literally just detach myself from the views. And I'm like, okay, if I just post 3 videos today, that in itself is going to make me more creative because I've got those ideas out, and listening back to those ideas, I'll get more ideas. So it kind of creates this like upward spiral of just like productivity, creativity, and just like output. But in terms of the actual inputs, if I don't like what I'm doing, like if I'm creating something just to go viral or just to get like views and shit, like that that's where the work becomes very daunting because it removes myself from like my core message of like, okay, my core message is like helping people reach their potential, and like turn that into reality. And my message is like helping people find meaningful work. If I can help people do that and make content around that, that's when I'm going to be fulfilled with my inputs. Being fulfilled with my inputs and being proud of my inputs, that will cause me to want to make more inputs because now I feel good, and creates this upward spiral. So that's how I kind of deal with it. And um, it's, I think for content creation, it's like one of those fields where this is like a great question to ask, because everybody deals with this because when you first start, you're not getting views. It has to be like intrinsically motivated on why you're doing this. And really knowing your why is a great cure to a lack of motivation that you're going through. So whenever I just like don't really know what like I'm burnt out, or like don't really know why I'm doing something, I think about my why. Like, why am I doing this? And that brings me back to real life, and I'm like, okay, this is my why. I haven't achieved that, but this input, process is gonna help me go there. Now I have a clear head on like what I'm gonna do. This is what I'm gonna do to do it. So yeah, that's kind of
How
how
do
I
you
approach
keep
it.
that consistency? And what would you tell other people if they're trying to start a business, content creation, or even trying to learn something new? How do you keep up with that consistency? How do you have that disciplined mindset?
So um, I think this may be a generalization to entrepreneurship in general, but from my understanding of like social media and content creation, I've realized that the consistency aspect isn't necessarily about, okay, if I post once a day for a year, if I talk to this many clients per day for a year, da 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 da, that consistency isn't it, the output isn't necessarily because you were consistent. It's because if you stay consistent, you create this new muscle within your body that allows you to do your job better. So for me, my consistency was posting a video every day, talking in front of the camera every day. Because I talk in front of the camera every day, I become more articulate. I become a better communicator on camera. I start writing more on my laptop, thinking of content ideas. I get new ideas, and I create this upward spiral in my life because I'm making it more consistent. These videos, if I'm consistent, that doesn't mean like the algorithm. Oh, they see that like, oh, I'm posting once a day. Let's make this one go viral. No, it's because I'm consistent. I create that muscle, and that muscle gets stronger and stronger until a certain point. It's like you're gonna test out your max on like a bench, and like you'll hit it, and that'll be like the viral video, right? And that's what gets you all the returns, like a power law, like in startups and tech, where investors, if they invest into 100 companies, one of those companies will become a unicorn, be worth $1 billion. 99% of them aren't, but they're gonna get all the returns from that one. So yeah, it's a very exponential thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I definitely still do kind of struggle with that consistency portion as I'm trying to balance a bunch of things, work, doing my other thing, and also trying to keep up with my content creation and podcast part. I think it's just I have to figure out my priorities, and I have to try to find that time. If I really do enjoy something, I have to find that type of time, right? And that's the hard part though. Like how do you find that time? Because you're doing multiple things at once, right? And then you have content creation, you're doing Stan, uh, and then just multiple other things. How do you find that time?
Yeah, so I was in the same position as you like last summer, but before that, I've realized over the past year, splitting attention and like whatever you do is like the worst enemy. You want to avoid that at all costs.
I
I
see.
learned it first when I was um, in my fall semester last year at McGill. I was balancing working at an AI startup. I was balancing school. I was balancing, my personal brand and like the gym. And like for school, it was very quantitative work. For For my AI startup, it was more communication based work with like different creators. For personal branding, it was more creative work and written work. And for the gym, it was physical work. There were so many different types of work in my life that my brain had to like switch on and off, and that creates these switching costs in your life. So if you can minimize that, if you can not split attention, you will have exponential returns with whatever you're doing because your brain is always constantly in that frame of thinking, and that creates compounding effects. Compound interest is like the name of life. Um, but when I was in your position last summer, I was posting. So I had my internship. I was working a consulting internship. I was trying to grow my personal brand, and I was going to the gym. So I'll just tell you my schedule. So on on weekdays, I would wake up at 4:30 a.m. I would go to the gym, be at the gym by 5, go to the gym 5 to 6:30. I would be at the gym. Um, then from 6:30 to 7:30, I would be eating, showering, getting ready. From 7:30 to 8, I would get to the train station, and then 8:30 to or 8 o'clock to 8:45, I would be getting into work. Then from 9 to 6, I would be at work, just doing my thing. And then I would commute back home and get back home probably around, I don't know, 7, and film some videos and repeat it all the next day. But you inherently, like, you don't realize how much of the day you are spending consuming instead of creating. So when I was commuting an hour every day to work and an hour back, that's 2 hours of time that I could be doing something. So during those 2 hours, I would be sitting on the train instead of taking a nap, instead of listening to music, instead of listening to a podcast, whatever. I would be creating videos. I would be either creating videos, editing videos, posting videos, or I'd be studying like the algorithm, seeing what's viral, tuning my viral sense, taking hooks from viral videos, making it my own. So that was my whole process. Um, Literally, sometimes at the gym, I would wake up at the gym, I would have this creative stint, and I'd just like in between sets, I would be editing a video, writing down, scripting videos, and that was like just my day to day life for 4 months. So whenever people tell me they don't have time, I just think it's just total BS because
Bullshit, eh?
that just means you're just
Yeah.
not prioritize. You don't care enough
Mm,
about what you're doing. You're not prioritizing
mm,
it enough. Um, so it's literally just a matter of like how bad do you want it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Damn, that podcast part was it was a shot to me, eh?
No, now I listen to podcasts where
No, I'm
I
playing.
was in this like creation
Yeah,
phase. I need to create something in my life.
yeah,
Now I actually listen to podcasts to kind of refine my ideas and refine my judgment, to create better content later on. So yeah,
yeah, absolutely. And
yeah,
yeah, I think that part is kind of just like how badly do you really want it, right?
yeah,
And that's something that I have to really see, right? Like how badly do I want it? Because I genuinely have a lot of pure interest in content creation and podcasting. I really like to interview other people. I like to ask questions. I really like to get to know them a lot deeper rather than having just surface level questions. I like to, it just really helps me get to know the other person more, and it helps me get to know, it just helps me get to know a lot of people about how people may think, right? A lot of people think differently. And I feel like that will help me in my life, right? In my future. And it's just interesting, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it's something you got to find that's interesting to you,
yeah, yeah,
right? So I remember you were talking about fitness, right? Gym, a strong body is a strong mind. What do you think about that? When you hear that quote, a strong body is a strong mind.
yeah. There's kind of two ways I think about it. The first part is obviously like the discipline part and just like hard work, whatever. Just like saying that you're gonna do something and doing it. Um, that's that's cool. I think the gym and like fitness and like playing hockey taught me a lot about just like fighting through pain, just like literally like physical pain, but that also translates to like mental pain. You're working out, it just hurts, but you just like fight
Yeah.
through it to like build muscle,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it kind of trains your brain to understand like delayed gratification, be like, okay, you'll look better later on, you'll be more fit later on, you'll be stronger later on, but right now you have to endure this pain. Um, and I think the whole name of the game of just like life is just like pleasure first, pain later, or no, pain first, pleasure later. Um, so it trains that delayed gratification. But like for a more physical aspect and like more scientific aspect, like when I was working in San Francisco, I was working like 70 hours a week. And if I didn't go to the gym in the morning, I would literally be stupider during the day. I would literally be
Yeah.
less productive during the day. I would have more brain fog during the day. And that's because like getting exercise allows you to just get those endorphins going, raise your heartbeat a little bit, get a sweat going, and that those physical effects translate into how you think and go about your day. So if you could just spend 30 minutes working out, that could probably save you an hour of day of just like productivity, just by being more productive. So there's also like a methodolog, like a like physical thing that allows you to be more productive. So yeah.
Yeah.
I need to charge my laptop right now. I'm gonna plug it
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. Yep. No
So
problem.
give me 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Take your time, bro.
Yeah. All right, we're good now.
All right. No problem. Uh, what were we talking about? I think we were talking about
We're talking about
fitness.
fitness. Yeah, yeah,
Fitness. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, fitness. Yeah. Uh, yeah. I used to be very, very consistent in grade 12 and first year of uni
yeah.
until I tore my ACL. So that really messed up my consistency, my whole routine. And
Yeah.
then I did restart again, right? Like I wasn't as consistent. I was going 3 times a week, 4 times a week, sometimes, right? And then sometimes I would even go for like 2 times a week. And then second year, it low key got worse. I won't even lie to you. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it would be like once or twice a week, not even. Uh, and then in January, that's when I actually started locking in. I started waking up early. I went to the gym. I got that out of the way. This consistency happened for a month and a half. Boom, ACL torn again.
Oh, how'd you tear it?
Oh, I was wrestling with some friends, and
Oh,
then he swept my feet, pop, messed it up again. Yeah. So it was rough. It was rough. But then I don't know, but it might have been an MCL strain instead, right? But
uh,
that hurt. Yeah, so that was a very, very big setback for me because I was actually gaining good weight. I was getting stronger, and I could actually see my shirts getting a lot fuller, right? I think my peak weight was around 175-ish, and now I've lost about 20 something pounds because of that setback, right?
yeah.
What would you tell people who experience setbacks, whether that may be in the gym, entrepreneurship, or even content creation? How do you deal with setbacks? How do you get back on your feet?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the biggest, it just like with setbacks, you just saw all this progress that you made, um, and you now see that you kind of reversed it and like you lost it. But when you think about it, just like with the gym, like if you already made progress and you lose it, that muscle memory will allow you to gain back that progress, whatever, in half the time. So if you can keep that in mind and be like, okay, I've already done this before. For me, getting from where I was to where, you know, to my ultimate peak, I had to go through so many learning curves to like get there. Now that I'm in this position where I'm not at my peak anymore, but I want to get back to my peak, I now know that I've already done it, but now I can do it without the learning curves that I've done before, that I've had to learn before, and just go straight away to that peak, knowing everything that I already know right now. So if you kind of think about that and learn and just like have that realization that you can get there with half the time or with half the struggle, with half the effort, that should be super motivating. And that's kind of how I look at setbacks and be like, okay, I've already done this. Why can't I do it again? And why can't I do it again in half the time frame or just without putting in as much effort as I did before? And that creates this super motivating, you know, thing in your life and creates this upward spiral that I keep on talking about. So that's kind of how I, yeah, look at setbacks.
Yeah. I think because for me, when all of this happened, I feel like my ego, it kind of got the best of me.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I would go back into the gym, I'm not used to I'm not used to doing as light of a weight that I used to do, right? Like I used to do very heavy weights when I'm either squatting, doing incline press or anything, right?
Yeah.
My ego gets the best of me where I'm like, I feel like a lot of people are looking at me and judging me. And I remember you talking about this, right? A lot of people, they don't really care as much as you think. As long as you're continuously showing up for yourself and not for other people, that will help you go a long way. And I want to ask you about the ego. A lot of the times, your ego gets in the way of you taking a big step, or even when other people try to tell you things, your ego gets in the way. How do you deal with that? Is it fine to have an ego, or is it fine to kind of lower your ego at times?
Um, I think having an ego when it comes to what you're doing and like thinking about like your progression within yourself is actually very important. If you don't think that like you're the best in the room or that like you're just like better than people or you're, I don't know, more competent or that you could just achieve better results than everybody else, it just there's really it's I feel like that's such an important thing. At least if you're trying something, trying to build something yourself, um, in like an entrepreneurial sense. Like if you look at like these like I don't know, if let's say you're trying to build like an app right now and you see somebody else building it, something similar. If you don't think that you can do it better than them, like dude, don't even try. Like you need to think that you're gonna do it better than them. You don't need to be smarter than them, but like you just have to have like delusional self belief that you're gonna do it better than them. So having a high ego in that regard is super important. I think when people tell you to have a lower ego, that comes in the context of receiving feedback and receiving criticism. Because if you have a high ego in that regard, then you will inherently dismiss that criticism and that feedback that is actually going to be very important and usually comes from a place of good intent. If that criticism and feedback is coming from a place of good intent from people that want you to do better, and think that you can do better, but your ego is kind of this blocker from, let's say you're here, this your ego, your high ego is basically going to be blocking all that criticism and feedback and thinking, oh, they're not right because you don't want to appear like inferior or that you made a mistake, that high ego is now going to counteract that criticism and feedback and won't allow you to progress and grow. So in the context of like being around people and like listening to what they have to say and their criticism and their feedback and their counter arguments, it's very important to have a low ego and just admit that maybe you weren't right or maybe you didn't do this right. And from there, you could essentially grow. But I mean, like for me, when I started, when people ask me like, did I think I was gonna gain 100,000 followers in a year? I literally said to them, "Oh, I had zero doubt in myself. Like there was never a doubt that this was gonna fail. There was never a doubt that I'm gonna stop doing this. Like I had full delusional self belief in myself that
Yep,
this would work out.
yep,
Um,
yep.
and when people say that, they're like, "Oh shit, like really?" I'm like, "Yes." So having that ego is important. On the other hand, the other ego with criticism and feedback, I think that is a detriment. So yeah.
100%. Yeah, that's so well said. I think you should definitely have that confidence, that ego where, yo, if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna give 100% of it and I'm gonna achieve it no matter what,
Yeah.
right? But you were talking about how the competency part. I want to ask, don't you think sometimes too much competency can get into your head where it's like, okay, um, for example, right? You that competency may take over your head and you become obsessed, right? Not you become obsessed in more so of a way where you don't care about anything else other than being better than this certain person.
Oh, okay. Well, I think in that it with that like situation, then it becomes like, well, you want to be better than someone else to achieve like a result where you're in like direct competition with them. Um, and when you're playing games where you winning results in somebody else losing, I think that's like a net like neutral game or like a net negative game where I hate those games. Like for me, my whole philosophy is like me versus me, competition against myself. I wouldn't consider myself a very competitive guy. Like I don't care to compete with you. I just want to see myself be the best version of myself. I don't care about you. Um,
Mhm.
and for me, like if you can get into games where somebody else wins, allows you to actually win as well, those are the games that you want to play. So in terms of the ego part, like I'm not too sure about how to answer that question. Um, I would say competency in general, like just there's this, like also this concept where the smarter you are, the more you overthink, the less you do, the less you like actually get results in your life. It's kind of like a um, I don't know, from the people that I see, like those hustlers, like entrepreneurs, they're low-key not that smart. They just kind of like didn't understand the negative side effects of like what they're doing and just like didn't think twice about it and just kind of got to where they are. Just worked really hard, but like they didn't overthink it and they weren't smart enough to like think about the negative consequences. So that could be an also thing where it's like your lack of competency also might get you to an even higher regard. But yeah, like I think playing games where you winning allows other people to win as well. Like for me, like viral, like content creation, social media. If somebody else is winning, somebody else is like having posts go viral, that helps me because the algorithm validated their videos already,
Mm,
and I could just take that template and
yeah.
take what worked and apply it to my videos, and now my videos will do well. It's like a net positive game. If somebody goes
Yeah.
viral, like it helps everybody else. So
Hmm.
those are the types of games that I want to play. Um, and that's something that's like a lesson that I've learned from Naval Ravikant, like his How to Get Rich thing, where if you create wealth, that's actually a net positive gain because wealth is inherently um, just creating like assets under your name and like businesses that provide value to other people. If you're creating a business that provides value to other people, people are getting value from your service and you're making money. Everybody wins, right? So if you can play those games, that's where you want to be. Yeah.
Mm. Do you read a lot of books?
Not really. I actually just started reading some books. I'm reading some almanacs from Eric Jorgensen or Eric
Hmm.
Peterson, like the Almanac of Naval Ravikant and like the Book of Elon, like a biography of Elon Musk. I just started reading Bullshit Jobs, which is like a whole book on like just bureaucratic jobs that shouldn't exist within like the corporate
Yeah,
world, which
yeah, yeah.
I find pretty interesting. But I think with reading books and like listening to videos and like podcasts and all that stuff, I think if you consume too much without creation, you're just like hoarding information. So,
Mm,
um, this is a lot of case. I feel like 90% of people in this world are consumers and they don't create anything in this world. So, like, a classic example is like, oh, the people that consume success content all the time, the reason why they're not like necessarily successful is because they consume it, they get this dopamine from consuming it, but they don't actually use that information to create something in this world. Creation is what allows you to achieve all your goals. Whether it's creating a business, whether it's creating content, whether it's being an athlete and like just being good at that sport and like creating results for the sports team, like that's where you get results. Just you being a smart person that memorized, that listened to everything, it's just a waste of time. You have to like my philosophy of like learning something. If I learn something, I stop as soon as I learn it. I think about all my other like learnings from the past and like try to piece them together, and then I teach it online because that teaching reinforces the learning, and then I become smarter, and then I move on to more information. So, yeah.
mm, yeah. I think yeah, that's actually a very, very good point. I was reading this book, How to Influence Friends and Something Else by Dave
Oh,
Carnage.
oh yeah, I think
Um,
yeah.
yeah, by Dave Carnage. It's a really good book. I feel like at some points I was just hoarding the information, just like how you were saying it, and not actually outputting, right? And actually doing the actions that I was learning from it, right? Yeah, it's the same thing that goes with school, right? You learn something, you have to practice to get better at it. That could even go with sports. You have to practice to get better at it, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Going off of that, right? I wanna ask you something. I'm sure a lot of people have had this type of question. How do you feel about when a lot of people feel behind, right? I've Have you ever felt that way, and how can people overcome that feeling?
Yeah, I mean, 100% I felt that whenever, like last year, I finished my second year at McGill University and I just like didn't have a job. Like I just didn't have an internship. I spent 8 months trying to find an internship. I applied to so many places. I sent so many cold coffee chat emails. Like nothing was really happening. Eventually, within like 2 weeks after finishing school, then I got into this like 4 round interview process for a consulting internship and like got there and like got the internship. But whenever I was in that position where I was going through finals, I didn't have a job. I finished school, I didn't have a job. I'm like, well, I was behind. So in that moment, that's when I started creating content. I'm like, okay, I have nothing else to do. I'm not going to just sit here and do nothing. If I have nothing going on, I have to pick up something. And then I'm like, okay, I always liked social media. I always wanted to do this personal branding thing. Well, I mean, now I have the time to do it. So I just took action instead of like planning and like being mad at the world for forever and just like complaining. The only thing that could really fix it is just like trying something new and taking action. So that's what I did. That's how I overcame that feeling of being behind. And I mean, it led to a great thing a year later. So um, just yeah, just like literally just starting, literally taking action on like whatever you wanted to do. That's been one of the greatest unlocks that I've learned over the past year. um, so that's how I dealt with it personally.
Hmm. Well said. Well said. Let me ask you one last question.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to ask you, what is your meaning of life?
My meaning of life,
Hmm.
um, hmm, I think right now my meaning of life is to do work that's meaningful to me. um, if I can do work that's meaningful to me every day, will feel like I'm doing something that's just like a hobby and that just like I enjoy. Um, I mean, this is a very like context specific question. I don't really have a answer to like the whole meaning of life. Um, but I think doing that, influencing people online to start their own journey, and helping people realize their potential and like actually turning into reality. Those are kind of like three messages and values that I look forward to. Um, but I think I said this before, throughout the talk, but I think ever since I was probably like 10, I had this philosophy where it was like I was competing against myself, and I was just like, um, it was like a me versus me thing, competition against myself. I think my meaning of life right now is just seeing the best version of myself live. If I could realize like the best version of myself, then that's what I'm striving towards. That will never happen because you could always be better. But let's say within a time frame, if I just want to see the best version of myself, whether it's physically, mentally, in terms of finances, in terms of relationships. Like, I just want to see myself realize my potential and just like know that okay, I I had this in me and I realized it. Like, thank God. Um, but it also comes back to that whole aspect of like it will never be enough. The process of the journey, like the hedonic treadmill and everything. So, um, I think that question will take a lot more refinement to answer,
Yeah,
later. But
100%.
right now, that's what I'm kind of focusing on. So yeah, I'm not like in terms of meaning of life. I'm not a super religious guy or anything. So, for me, I'm a very intrinsic person. Everything's like just personal development about me, and trying to use all my learnings and help other people kind of realize that potential as well. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Beautifully said, bro. I mean, I will love to ask you that question in the next 5 years again, and I know you're gonna have a different type of answer.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
that was that.
once
Yeah,
again, bro. Once again, Nick, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. You've inspired me actually. Like you're the same age as me, and I'm just like, holy shit, this guy is so knowledgeable, right? And it's definitely gonna help a lot more other people, right? Whoever's gonna be watching this. So that's why I want to say thank you very much for coming on and actually inspiring me and inspiring other people, bro.
yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on here. This might actually my first podcast ever. So, um, yeah, it's also like a learning process. I'll get better the next time I speak on a podcast. So yeah, awesome.
Hell
Thanks,
yeah.
man.
Awesome, bro. Cool. You mind if we take a picture real quickly?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.